Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Rich Snob Blocked the Entrance to My Farm Property. I built a fence around his BMW and blocked him in. TLDR. Man keeps trespassing on my farm and using it for his personal parking. He ignores signs and notes I have left him to not do this, and things come to a boil when he blocks my farm exit. I decide to build a fence around his whole car to teach him a lesson about listening. He freaks out and gets the sheriff, who tells the man not to trespass and asked me to give the car back. I take down the fence and the man leave to never be seen again. He learned the hard lesson of mess with a farmer, and he will become your worst nightmare. By the title alone this might seem a bit harsh, so I need to give a little background about what has been going on around my property for about a year now. People from the city coming on trips to the rural farmlands have become increasingly popular. That is something I actually like because exposing kids to nature and farms is always a good thing and makes us happy. The bad thing is that the people from the city seem to think that they are extremely entitled over the farmers that work and live off this land because we don't have the kind of fancy lifestyle they do. Personally, for this kind of mindset I mostly just roll my eyes and get on with my busy day. I don't have time to dwell on ignorant people. The only issue comes when these people think that they are entitled to do whatever they want even if it means impeding on my property. It isn't just me either. All of my neighbors who are farmers complain about people parking on their property and then just seeming to vanish. Farmers are busy and we don't have all day to wait around and try to find these people, so we have to get on with our work, and usually by the time we get back to where their car was at the end of the day they are gone. I hate these kinds of people, and I find myself seeing more and more people parking on my property without permission. I have put up signs explaining this as private property. I have left notes on cars. Nothing seemed to get through to most of these snobs. Now I want to tell you about one particular person that seemed to like to visit the country a lot and use my property to park. I know it is the same person because he drives a black BMW, and the license plate is custom and never changes. I have left notes on his car, and he seems to just not care and think he is good enough to park on my private property every single time that he wants to come to the country. One morning I am getting into my truck to go into town to drop off some milk and eggs for one of the shopkeepers that ordered them. When I get to my front gate though, I can see that Mr. BMW has parked right in front of the exit, making it impossible for me to get out that way. I am furious about this, and the first thing I do is go inside and call the customer to explain the situation and why I can't get them the milk and eggs today. He is nice and tells me he knows about the problems and that he can wait. I decide to teach this guy a lesson once and for all, while maybe giving a message to the other entitled city people who want to come and park on our land with no regards. I have extra fencing materials in case an enclosure for the chickens gets damaged or if I just need another one. I take it all and go back to this man's car where I build a full fence right around it. No gate, no nothing, just 4 sides of pure fence around his car. I build it close too so he can't try to get over the fence and even open a door. He isn't going anywhere until I take my tools and dismantle the fence. I used chicken wire and did a quick job so taking it down would be easy enough at the end. Then I went on with my day until at almost nightfall, when I was doing my final rounds on the animals that I hear yelling and cursing coming from my front yard. Man. What the hell did you do to my car? Me. Nothing, I didn't touch your car. Man. There is a fence around it. How am I supposed to get home? Me. I had plans to build a fence for an enclosure there and you weren't anywhere to be found. Man. You had no right to do this to my car. I could get you arrested for this. Me. You are parked on my property and driving up here you saw all the signs including no trespassing and parking. Plus, I remember your car and I know I left you notes. Man. Screw your notes. You have no idea who I am. I don't have time to go and find a spot to park. This is as good as anywhere else. Me. Well, it's my property and you standing here is trespassing. I am asking you nicely to leave now, but if you keep yelling at me, I might take my shotgun out for my own protection. Please note I wasn't actually ever going to shoot him or even point a gun at him. I just wanted him to stop yelling and calm down. He took this as a cue to leave and take the long walk into town to try and figure out what he was going to do about his car. He ended up calling the sheriff, who came by with the man in tow and listened to everything we both had to say. In that, the man was basically forced to admit that he knowingly trespassed and asked me if I could please take the fence down on one side so the man could leave. I knew that I could have been real mean about it and refused until he went to court and had them force me to remove it. But this car was still blocking my farm exit and I really needed to get my truck out and into town. I removed it and the man got into his car and drove away, learning a valuable lesson about messing with a farmer. I don't know what happened after that exactly, but parking on our properties went down a little bit after that. Of course, it is never going to stop 100%, but it isn't as crazy of a problem as it was a year ago. Mr. BMW was never seen again by me or any of my neighbors. They all loved the story when I told them what I did, and one even told me about this website and that I should go and post it because people might like it. Farmers around here are usually pretty calm and nice people who, if asked, would point someone in a good direction where they can park their cars or even let visitors come to show their children about livestock. I even had parents telling me their son was obsessed with cows and would it be okay for me to show their son a cow. I took him and showed him how to milk them and everything. Those are the kind of city people that I like. The entitled snobs that think they are better because they are from the city, though, should just stay there honestly. A farmer can be your best friend when you are nice to them, or your worst enemy if you wrong them. So, if any of you live in a city and want to go to a farm area on a trip, my advice is to just be nice to the farmers that live there, because it could be the difference between a great trip and having your car fenced in. The next story is titled, I ate for getting my aunt and uncle kicked out of their house for not letting my husband and I sleep together. I, male 27, am married to a man, male 28. He is the love of my life. I had only ever dated women before him, but when I met him, I realized I was bi, and we fell in love. We got married in the fall of 2018, so it's been almost 4 years. We now live in Vermont. My whole family is from a small town in Texas, a super conservative Catholic area. I was raised there, but Dad got a job in NYC when I was 15. The culture shock was difficult. We went from living in rural Texas to living in an apartment in Manhattan. My parents didn't sell our house in TX, they allowed our aunt and uncle, who just had their third child, to move in while charging them a small rent. In college, when I came out as bi, my brother and dad were very supportive. My mom needed some time to accept. The rest of my family reacted poorly at first but came around. During visits we stayed with my aunt and uncle at my old house, but because we weren't married, we weren't allowed to share a bed. We didn't argue, we both would rather make peace. Visiting since, instead of staying with my aunt and uncle, we would rent a motel room. During COVID we did not visit them. But this summer, my parents and bro decided to go visit my hometown again for 2 weeks and invited my husband and me. I wanted a motel again, but my aunt and uncle insisted my brother, husband and I stay with them. The first night's sleeping situation was being discussed after my cousins went to bed. My aunt and uncle wanted me and bro to take the spare bedroom, husband on couch. All 3 of us took issue with that. They snapped that we were not really married because we were gay, and that they had children in the house. They said that it would be a bad influence on their kids. This hurt my husband's feelings and he started crying and ran out of the room. When my husband ran out, my uncle had the audacity to start laughing. That's when I saw red. I started cussing them out so loudly that my young cousins came to investigate. I told them that if they didn't go apologize to my husband immediately, then I was going to tell my dad what just happened, and I was going to make sure to have them kicked out of the house. That was still in my parents' name. My bro seconded everything that I was saying. They started backtracking and saying that we were still welcome in their house but that we had to follow their rules. I responded that it wasn't really their house. I told them they were going to be homeless if I had my way. The kids started crying because they heard me say they were all going to be homeless, so we left. My husband was on the porch crying. I promised him that I would never subject him to that again. I told Dad what happened. To say that my dad was angry would be an understatement. He served them a notice of eviction for 60 days. I have been getting calls and texts and Facebook messages from my family calling me a hole. I want to know, Aida, for allowing my young cousins to end up homeless? Is it fair that they have to pay for what my aunt and uncle said to me and my husband? Update. Hey y'all. My husband and I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming amount of support and love. We have updates. To people asking where my mom is in all of this. She's now supportive of my husband and I's relationship. She agrees that I gave aunt and uncle a chance to apologize, and they didn't. I could tell my dad was not telling me the whole story about the eviction, so I pressed my mom and found out the truth 3 days ago. I've been having a hard time with it. The day I told him, my dad reached out to my aunt and uncle, and not only did they show no remorse, they said that they didn't want their kids to be faggots because of us. Yeah, they really said that. He asked why they would invite us to stay with them if this is how they truly felt. This is where it gets bad. To them, it's one thing if we are living in Vermont being gay. It's another thing if we visit my hometown, throwing our lifestyle in everyone's faces by shacking up at the motel. The local motel owner, whose family owns it and is a childhood friend of my mom's, gossiped about us every time we were there. She was nice to our face but behind our backs, different story. Because everyone knows each other, we would become the talk of the town when we stayed there, and we had no idea. We wouldn't have tolerated it if we had. We never stayed long for visits because we could sense something was off, but pushed the feeling aside because to our faces, they were nice. These are people that know me, that claim to love me. Mom said my aunt and uncle were trying to save face with the rest of the town and try to control our behavior at the same time while we were there. Before evicting, my dad asked Mom to reach out to this gossiping friend. According to the friend, A and U were a major part of the shit talking. No one ever said anything to my face. I feel so disgusted and betrayed and naive. This enraged my dad, so he decided to evict them. He told them that they can freeload somewhere else, and he will never accept anyone as family that would treat his sons that way. Mom says he's gone NC with them. Mom told me that he thinks of my brother, husband, and I as his pride and joy. I feel so proud that I have a dad like him. I mentioned that he is my hero. This is just the icing on the cake. He has always been my #1 supporter, and he told me when I came out as bi that he would always have my back. He kept that promise. My dad doesn't know he's internet famous. I still don't know how to break it to him lol. He's a humble guy. Dad doesn't use social media so we're safe for now. My bro knows about this post, and we've been trying to figure out a plan of action. We've been contacted by journalists. We've gotten so many loving messages. But at the end of the day, I'm just an average guy still trying to process the fact that I got betrayed on a scale that I can't even comprehend. For those saying we are a holes for letting my cousins go homeless, I can confidently say now that they only have their parents to thank for that. The last story is titled, "The Police Has Been Called on Me." So, I just had a guest call the cops on me. Whomever does night audit and security is allowed to park their car on the edge inside the wide carport. People can still drive through it. This is a boon for us, because we like to keep an eye on our cars during these hours. Years earlier, I had somebody mess with my car twice when I parked further away while doing 3 to 11 p.m. Anyhow, every now and then, the carport will have a guest temporarily park in my spot behind security while they check in. No big deal, I can temporarily park in the loading bay until it clears out, about 50 feet away. However, soon after clocking in, an extremely angry lady came to the FD and demanded a car be towed because it was in a handicap spot without a sticker. She showed a picture on her phone, and it was mine. I explained to her that it was my car, probably a mistake, but it was not a handicap spot. I told her it was a loading bay typically used for deliveries, like food trucks. The area it is at is next to the handicap spots, but there's not a handicap sign. It's about 3 times the space of a regular parking spot. And it has vertical lines in it from top to bottom. The lady responded, "Well, it's not any kind of parking spot." I agreed and then asked her that if she can acknowledge that, then why was she treating it like it was a parking spot? She didn't give an answer and we repeated this cycle of conversation. She kept making exaggerated facial expressions that came across as condescending and snooty as if she didn't believe me. The guy working behind the desk at the property. She walked towards to the front door loudly saying she was going to tell her husband. I called after her, "Please, do." As she was exiting, I heard her yell out to somebody, "You're going to flip your lid," the guy said. By the way, the husband never came inside or called me. I saw another person on the camera, but it was dark, and they quickly walked off to building C. We have 4 buildings. About 5 minutes later, my security person asked me why the police were here. I got a sense of dread and thought, she better have not called the police. Yes, she did. The police officer said they got a call from a person not wanting to identify themselves about this situation. He was parked on the edge of the carport and said, "There's not even a handicap sign there." We talked about it and kinda found the whole situation funny. Lol. The cop was able to tell I was not in a parking spot, handicap or otherwise, from 50 feet away in the dark. He waved it off and said don't worry about it, and even if there was a real case, it's up to the property to have a car towed, removed, not the police. The fact that she didn't want to give her identity makes me think she knew she was in the wrong. Thanks for listening.